I still remember that morning clearly, not because it was special, but because it felt painfully ordinary. The sky was dull, the air heavy, and my heart even heavier. I woke up with the same thoughts that had been repeating in my mind for months. Nothing is changing. Nothing ever will. My life felt stuck in a quiet loop. Wake up, work, come home, sleep, repeat. I wasn't unhappy in a dramatic way, but I wasn't truly living either. I was simply existing. As I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, I felt tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of waiting for the right time. Tired of hoping something would magically improve without me doing anything differently. Deep down, I knew the truth. My life wasn't going to change unless I changed something first. Still, the idea of taking even a small step felt scary. That day, there was one simple decision in front of me. I had been thinking about it for weeks, maybe even months. It was a small step, so small that most people wouldn't even notice it. Yet for me, it felt enormous. Taking that step meant leaving my comfort zone. It meant risking failure. Worse, it meant facing the possibility that I might try and still not succeed. I stood up slowly and walked to the window. People were already moving outside, each of them busy with their own lives. I wondered how many of them were also standing at a crossroads, afraid to move. For the first time in a long while, I asked myself an honest question. What if I don't take this step? Where will I be a year from now? The answer frightened me more than the risk itself. I saw the same routine, the same regrets, the same quiet disappointment. That image stayed with me as I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking slightly, and my heart was beating faster than usual. This wasn't a bold leap or a dramatic transformation. It was just one small action, but it felt like opening a door I had kept locked for a long time. I reminded myself that I didn't need to have everything figured out. I didn't need to be fearless. I only needed to begin. With that thought, I made the decision I had been avoiding. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't confident. But it was real. As I took that first small step, I didn't know it yet, but my life had already started to change. After taking that small step, I expected to feel proud or relieved. Instead, fear followed me like a shadow. It whispered doubts into my mind. What if this is a mistake? What if you fail? What if people judge you? Every part of me wanted to turn back and return to what was familiar and safe. I realized something important during those first few days. Taking a step forward doesn't make fear disappear. If anything, it brings fear closer. But this time, I didn't let it stop me. I told myself that fear was just a sign that I was doing something new, something that mattered. There were moments when I almost gave up. I questioned my abilities and wondered if I was good enough. I compared myself to others who seemed more confident, more successful, more prepared. But late at night, when everything was quiet, I reminded myself why I started. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I was trying to be better than yesterday. Each day, I repeated that small step. Some days it felt easier. Other days it felt heavier than before. Progress was slow, almost invisible, but something inside me was changing. I was no longer waiting for my life to improve. I was participating in it. I began to notice small victories, a moment of confidence, a spark of hope, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, I was capable of more than I had believed. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled my decisions. I was learning to move forward, even while being afraid. And that alone felt like a quiet kind of courage. As time passed, I started to notice changes, not in my situation, but in myself. The world around me looked the same, yet I felt different inside. I carried myself with a little more confidence, even on days when I was unsure. The small step I had taken was slowly reshaping how I saw myself. I stopped waiting for motivation to appear. I learned that action often comes first, and motivation follows. There were mornings when I didn't feel ready, But I moved forward anyway. And every time I did, I proved to myself that I could keep going, even without perfect conditions. What surprised me most was how my mindset began to shift. I no longer saw challenges as signs to stop. Instead, I saw them as lessons. Mistakes didn't feel like failures anymore. They felt like proof that I was trying. That realization alone lifted a weight I didn't know I had been carrying. People around me started to notice the change too. Some encouraged me, others doubted me. But their opinions mattered less than before. For the first time, I was living for my own growth, not for approval. That freedom was powerful. I still had moments of fear and uncertainty, but they no longer defined me. I was becoming someone who trusted the process, even when the outcome was unclear. And that was a change I never expected from such a small beginning. Not every part of the journey was inspiring. There came a time when the excitement faded and exhaustion took its place. Progress felt slow again, and doubt returned with a familiar voice. I wondered if all my effort was worth it. I asked myself if this small step was really changing anything at all. One day, after a particularly difficult moment, I sat alone and felt completely drained. I thought about quitting, about going back to my old routine where nothing was demanded of me. It would have been easier, comfortable, safe. For a moment, that choice felt tempting. But then I remembered who I was before I started. I remembered the quiet frustration, the feeling of being stuck, and the sadness of knowing I wasn't trying. I realized that even on my worst days now, I was still further than I had been before. So instead of quitting, I paused. I allowed myself to rest without giving up. I learned that strength isn't about pushing nonstop. It's about continuing, even if you move slowly. That day, I didn't take a big step. I took a tiny one, and that was enough. Choosing not to quit became one of the most important decisions of my life. Looking back now, it's hard to believe that everything began with something so small. At the time, it felt insignificant, almost invisible. But that small step changed the direction of my life in ways I never could have imagined. It didn't transform my world overnight, but it transformed me. And that made all the difference. I learned that growth doesn't arrive loudly. It comes quietly through consistency, patience, and the courage to keep going when no one is watching. Each small step built on the last, creating a path I didn't know existed before. I became more confident, more aware, and more honest with myself. Life didn't suddenly become easy. I still faced challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But now, I faced them with belief instead of fear. I trusted myself to adapt, to learn, and to move forward, even when the road was unclear. That small step taught me a powerful truth. I don't need to change everything at once to change my life. I only need to begin. And once I did, I discovered that I was capable of more than I had ever believed. This is my story, not of a giant leap, but of a small step that changed my life forever.